Probably no ethnic group in all of world history has had as bad a rap as the Mughals in the popular imagination and the way they've been treated by serious historians and serious scholars. The image we have of them is this horde of horsemen descending on innocent villagers about to pillage, loot, and rape. In fact, the Mongols are, in a sense, the extreme example of the way sedentary people who live in cities and farm land and the rest, the way they write about nomads, the way they regard nomads as violent, barbarian, that very term. Actually, it basically means they don't speak Greek. They speak these other strange languages, but that was the term that comes to be applied to nomadic peoples who herded, people who moved about. All of this, of course, despite millennia of interaction, of trade, of cultural exchange, of conquest of sedentary areas by nomadic warriors and nomadic peoples over time. Recent research has shown, however, yes, there were cities burned. There was pillage. Usually, almost always with the Mongols, the cities that were burned and the slaughters that took place were only against cities who resisted. If the cities surrendered, the Mongols spared them and incorporated them into their empire. But the Mongol Empire that was created and the way in which the Mongol expansion, the Mongol Imperium, brought together the different parts of the world is a very important part of the story that doesn't get told in the older accounts, and certainly is not there in the popular imagination. To understand the impact of all of this, we have to understand how the Mongols came about, because they come into history very quickly and they leave very quickly. The Mongol Imperium lasts about a century. And it's even fragmented after the death of the man who's responsible, because this is one of the great examples of the importance of individual humans in history. And the human in this case is a young Mongol named Temujin, or later to be called Chinggis Khan, who has to be certainly one of the greatest military leaders in all of history. He came from a prominent Mongol clan. The Mongols were divided into clans, as most nomadic groups are. As a youth, he did all the things that a Mongol youth did. He rode a horse before he could walk. He could shoot an arrow onto the belly of a horse and kill you at 50 or 60 yards. He knew about battle and all the other kinds of things, and herding animals and the rest. His family, as I said, had been somewhat prominent. His father, however, died when he was very young, and the family fell on hard times, so much so that eventually he was captured and enslaved by the leaders of another clan. He makes a daring escape. All this is stuff of Hollywood movies, and there is actually not a Chinese movie about him that's really quite splendid. He escapes and ultimately becomes a client of another powerful leader, because that's the way the clan system works, and ultimately emerges as a major leader in his own. He had a great capacity both for making war and for making alliances. And what he does is he manages to unite all of the Mongol tribes and clans, which no one had ever been able to do before, and turn the horse riding ability, the archery, all the rest, to turn that into the greatest war machine the world had known at that time. The Mongols specialized in, as we might expect as nomads, in cavalry, heavy and light cavalry. They pioneered all kinds of things, scouting, special war tactics, and were enormously successful. For 40 or 50 years, no one could stand against them. They suffer one major defeat, but it doesn't stop the empire building. Within his lifetime, within Chinggis Khan's lifetime, a short time he was the leader of the Mongols, these nomads from Central Asia build an empire that extends from Baghdad in the west to China, North China in the east. After conquering much of the Middle East, he's going back across Central Asia when he falls sick of an old wound that he has, and he dies. And his death is interesting. He has one of the most interesting, has to be one of the most interesting funeral marches in all of history, because he's taken to the central, to essentially the capital, the tent capital of his kingdom, and everything, as the Mongol army moves across the land to that, they destroy everything into their path. Every animal, every living creature is wiped out in honor of him. The empire is built, and the crucial thing to see is that not just the destructive side of it, but the positive side of it. The first thing that they do is they reopen the Silk Roads, which had been closed off by different warring groups and the rest in the interim. And it was said of the Mongol Empire that a man could walk with a golden plate on his head from one end of the empire to the other and be perfectly safe, because the Mongols guaranteed that commerce and trade, and the rest of the Silk Road was about trade all across Central Asia, Europe, and China at the other end, and the Middle East. The context, again, the human context, the process of globalism that the Mongols contribute to is a major impact of the empire, even though it only lasts a century. The other thing is that the Chinggis Khan was very interested in all religions. He invited monks and priests and rabbis to his capital and learned about their religions. So the empire was tolerant as far as religions went, and that alleviated the violence, the internal violence in these areas over religious issues and the rest. He was very attentive. Even when they destroyed a city and wiped out the population, he always spared the artisans, and he always spared the religious leaders unless they were plotting against him. And so that in this period, you get one of the richest periods of exchange between the Middle East and China, which are the two great centers of civilization in the 13th and 14th centuries when the Mongols are ascended.